Cryptocurrency was created to replace the current financial system. And with each passing day, the crypto industry is coming closer to achieving this goal. This has resulted in a lot of pushback from the powers that be, who don't want to see their centralized money monopolies replaced by cryptocurrency. However, people often forget that money is just a small part of the power equation. This is because money alone has no power. It's what individuals and institutions decide to do with that money which moves the heavens and the earth. In other words, the real power lies in governance. It lies in deciding how resources are allocated. Now, cryptocurrencies have given rise to dozens of novel community governance structures over the years. Some of these decentralized autonomous organizations now have billions of dollars of crypto sitting in their treasuries, ready to be allocated in accordance with the interests of their communities. This means that cryptocurrencies have the potential to not just replace the current financial system, but also the governments which sanction and support its corruption with their monopoly on violence. Today, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about cryptocurrency governance and why it's the final frontier for financial freedom. Before we dive into the future of finance, I need to make sure I don't get banned. Don't take anything here as a financial recommendation. Everything in this video is just for your entertainment and education. If this is your first rodeo, my name is Guy and I'd like to welcome you to the Coin Bureau. This channel is home to crypto content that's so good you'll want to share it with your neighborhood, and you should. Coins, tokens, news, reviews, exchanges, tutorials, and market moves are just a few of the topics I unpack just for you. If crypto makes your world go round, subscribe to the channel and give that bell button a pound. If you've got places to be, use the timestamps in the video timeline to skip ahead to your preferred scenes. If you watch until the end, you'll be one step closer to setting yourself free. That's my 2 cents. Now, let's dive into cryptocurrency governance. I want to start with a short history lesson about something you've possibly never heard about. Around 100 years ago, more than a quarter of all people living in the United States, Great Britain, and Australia used fraternal societies for health insurance and healthcare. These fraternal societies, also called friendly societies, were not all that different from the decentralized autonomous organizations we see in cryptocurrency today. Members of fraternal societies would pay a monthly fee into a treasury, and these treasury funds would be used to cover the medical costs of the members of the fraternal society. Because fraternal society members all knew each other, this would prevent any one of them from using an unnecessary amount of treasury funds, lest they be forced to pay a higher monthly fee. Part of these treasury funds were used to pay for a yearly contract with a doctor who would provide basic medical care for the members of the fraternal society on an as-needed basis. Now, at the time, there were a lot of doctors around, and this created intense competition between them to land the best yearly contracts with fraternal societies. This competition kept the costs of healthcare low across the board. In the case of fraternal societies, it meant a single day's wage would cover a year's worth of basic medical care, hence why fraternal societies were especially popular among the working class. Not all doctors were happy about this setup, however, and they called on the government to fix it, and so they did. Healthcare regulators started to deny doctors medical licensing for signing contracts with fraternal societies. They also raised the bar to become a doctor on the grounds that it would improve the quality of medical care. This significantly reduced the number of doctors in circulation, and healthcare costs started to rise. These combined factors caused fraternal societies to fall out of favour, and they were replaced by public and private centralised healthcare and health insurance providers. Many of these centralised parties have since become corrupted monopolies, and medical costs have only continued to rise under their reign. The key takeaway here is that community governments has the potential to completely revolutionise certain aspects of our lives, and cryptocurrency has given us the tools to take community governance mainstream. Now, broadly speaking, there are 2 types of governance structures in cryptocurrency: off-chain governance and on-chain governance. Off-chain governance is common among proof-of-work cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, and also Ethereum for the time being. One off-chain governance process some of you may be familiar with is improvement proposals posted by crypto community members on GitHub for everyone to see and discuss. A simple example here is Ethereum Improvement Proposal 1559, or EIP 1559 for short, which introduced partial ETH transaction fee burns to the Ethereum blockchain with the London hard fork in early August. EIP 1559 was initially posted to GitHub in April 2019, and it's one of the few EIPs that's actually been implemented since Ethereum was created in July 2015. This is partially because off-chain cryptocurrency governance processes are not very structured, but primarily because there are many different stakeholders involved in proof-of-work cryptocurrencies. If you watched my video about what happens to Bitcoin when the last BTC is mined, you might remember the concept of the economic majority. If you want to make a big change to a proof-of-work cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, the economic majority must be in favor of the change. This includes Bitcoin miners, Bitcoin developers, and also BTC holders. This might come as a surprise, as we've often been told that Bitcoin miners and developers are ultimately in control of the Bitcoin blockchain, but this is not the case in the slightest. To understand why, imagine most Bitcoin miners and developers decide they want to turn BTC into an inflationary cryptocurrency, meaning BTC would no longer have a maximum supply of 21 million. If the majority of BTC holders disagree with this decision, they'll dump their BTC as soon as the hard fork with the supply change goes live. Assuming the few opposing miners and developers decide to continue sticking to the original 21 million limit, all those disgruntled BTC holders would invest their cash back into the BTC version they support. This would create two versions of the Bitcoin blockchain with different rules and shared histories. Now, these hard forks have happened many times for most proof-of-work cryptocurrencies, notably Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, hard forks tend to be a big security risk to both the original blockchain and the new blockchain, which is why major changes are not even attempted unless the economic majority is on board. In this case, majority doesn't mean 51%, it means 95% at the very least. This high threshold makes off-chain governance a very slow process. It's why it took over 2 years for EIP 1559 to pass, and it's why Bitcoin will be getting its first upgrade in 4 years this November. The trade-off is that off-chain governance makes proof-of-work cryptocurrencies more secure than proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies, and you can learn more about that using the link up there in the top right. In contrast to off-chain governance, on-chain governance takes place, well, on-chain. On-chain governance is common among proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies such as Polkadot, Solana, Terra, and eventually Ethereum after 2.0 rolls around. Now that said, on-chain governance is not limited to cryptocurrencies. On-chain governance is frequently leveraged by decentralized applications, especially DeFi protocols. Now, while on-chain governance structures often do have their own dedicated forums for discussing changes to the cryptocurrency or application, it's the smart contracts which define and enforce the requirements for tabling, passing, and rejecting proposed improvements. On-chain governance structures often feature a community treasury, which is formed from a portion of staking rewards coming from newly minted tokens and/or transaction fees coming from the blockchain or application. The most basic on-chain governance structures give users one vote for each coin or token they hold, and a proposal is passed if 51% of participating coins or tokens vote in favor of the proposal. Once successfully passed, a portion of treasury funds are allocated to whatever improvement or initiative the proposal sought to bring about, and with a bit of luck, it goes live with no issues. Now, obviously, this basic setup isn't ideal because it makes it very easy for someone with a lot of money to come in and buy all the coins or tokens they need to get their way, or even vote to give themselves the crypto in the community treasury. Luckily, most on-chain governance structures are set up to prevent this from happening, and many crypto projects have come up with some very clever ways of doing this. One of the best examples of this is Polkadot's governance structure, which I'll keep simple for the sake of this video. So, To table a proposal on Polkadot, you must bond, aka stake, dot coins. The threshold for whether a Polkadot proposal is passed depends on how many dot coins are participating, with a higher level of consensus required if there are fewer dot participating, and vice versa. Instead of the standard 1 dot equals 1 vote, the weight of a vote depends on how long the dot is locked up for, with the maximum 32-month lockup offering a 6x vote multiplier. Each Polkadot voting period is 1 month, and if a proposal is passed, it can still be vetoed by the community-elected Polkadot Council. Even if it's passed by the Polkadot Council, if the proposal is found to be a threat to the blockchain by Polkadot's community-elected technical committee, the proposal is vetoed, and the dot staked by the proposer is burned. If it all goes smoothly, it takes another month before the proposal is implemented, and in cases of emergency proposals, it can be fast-tracked by the technical committee. You can learn more about Polkadot by using that link up there in the top right. Now, on-chain governance might sound like it's the bee's knees, but as explained by Ethereum founder Vitalik Buterin in a recent blog post, on-chain governance can be extremely dangerous. This is easy to understand in the context of the aforementioned economic majority with off-chain governance structures. In on-chain governance, the crypto coin or token holder is now also the miner, and the presence of a community treasury means they can afford to alienate any non-compliant developers since they can just hire new ones with treasury funds. This makes on-chain governance a rich man's world, and we've seen the consequences of this play out in DeFi protocols with lots of VC funding. Put differently, on-chain governance is inherently less secure. Now, even so, on-chain governance structures offer a path to a decentralized future free of overreaching governments, and here is how it can be done. According to Vitalik, the main thing that's missing from cryptocurrency governance structures is a mechanism for properly funding public goods. Public goods are the things that governments are supposed to provide. This includes stuff like roads, bridges, police, firefighters, military, elections, regulations, and various administrative practices. What counts as a public good is obviously up for debate, and it's very true that many of the public goods I just mentioned could theoretically be provided by private corporations. However, the issue is that money as a points system is no good when it comes to certain public goods. Allow me to explain. Earlier, I talked about fraternal societies and how they offered insanely affordable healthcare to their constituents. Now, the reason why fraternal societies were so popular is simply because a day's wage was more than worth the healthcare each individual fraternity member would get in return. By contrast, universal healthcare, i.e. government-provided healthcare, doesn't always give each individual the same bang for their buck. This is because you could go your entire life paying lots of taxes for a universal healthcare system that you never used until your dying days, if at all. Given this fact, many people would prefer to keep that tax cash instead and bite the bullet by paying upfront for health services if or when anything went south. This would increase the tax burden for universal healthcare on everyone else still paying into it, causing them to jump ship too, and then the whole healthcare system would collapse. Now, whatever your opinions are on universal healthcare, it's clear that it counts as a public good, but it's one that wouldn't get funded if money alone was used as the measuring stick because of the incentives I just mentioned. The way governments solve this issue today is to use force. You can't opt out of paying taxes, and if you fail to pay your taxes, men with guns will come and take you to jail. The way Vitalik wants to solve this is through the use of something called quadratic funding. Quadratic funding is based on the idea that if multiple people are allocating money to a particular thing, that thing is worth more than the sum of money being poured into it. In other words, the value of a service depends more on how many people are using it rather than how much money they're putting into it, which is pretty logical if you ask me. The cool thing is that this puts all services on a spectrum rather than deeming them to be a public good or not. The services with the most users would therefore be eligible to receive a much higher amount of funding than the service with the most money involved. Now, I'll just quickly point out that funding the services with the most money involved is the cause of a lot of government corruption. Now, anyways, this funding can be provided to a service according to a special quadratic formula, which I'm not even going to try and explain here. Instead, I'll show you using a nifty quadratic funding calculator. So, as you can see, a theoretical service with 2 users paying $10 each would only receive $285 out of $1,000, whereas a theoretical service with 10 users paying $1 each would get the rest, a whopping $715. If you're wondering where this funding would come from, the answer is that good old community treasury. This would ensure that public goods, aka the most used services, receive the funding required to continue operating. This leaves the final piece of the governance puzzle, and that's a way of verifying that each person participating in an on-chain governance structure is real and not someone using multiple identities. The way we do this right now is to hand over all our personal information to a centralized party, who could manipulate or destroy that information. The centralized party in question also has the power to remove us from whatever process or platform we're participating in if we happen to act or vote in a way they don't like. Rather than entrust the user verification mechanism to a centralized party, we can use decentralized identity solutions instead. Though there are many cryptocurrency projects currently working on this, they all work in more or less the same way, and that's to have someone else using the app or dApp verify your identity. This can be something as simple as meeting up in person or having a video call online, and many of these decentralized identity solutions don't even require any form of ID. It's literally just someone saying, "Hey, it's me." Once a decentralized digital identity has been created, it becomes possible to create robust on-chain governance structures that don't depend as heavily on coin or token holdings. The only thing left is to find a way to keep voting information private, otherwise people could be targeted or coerced to change their vote. Vitalik has another brilliant solution to this problem, and that's to mask a vote when it's cast using zero-knowledge proofs. As I mentioned in my video about the Mina protocol, zero-knowledge proofs make it possible to prove something without revealing any information. Vitalik wants to take this idea one step further by even making it impossible for the person who cast the vote to prove how they voted to someone else. It's something that only they would know, and there would be no record of any kind of how they voted anywhere, even though the vote was registered as a for or against a particular proposal on the blockchain. When you combine all this technology together, it's easy to see how centralized governance structures could be replaced by decentralized autonomous organizations. We can expect to see many of these technologies fully operational on Ethereum 2.0, and you can get my most recent scoop about Ethereum 2.0, by clicking that link up there in the top right. Cryptocurrency is destined to go beyond finance, and this is often forgotten between all the price pumps and dumps. To me, decentralized governance is the most powerful technology in cryptocurrency. It makes it possible to do things like what those fraternal societies did with healthcare 100 years ago. And the full extent of the benefits decentralized governance can bestow is nowhere close to being realized today. I reckon it's not far-fetched to say that for every dollar that's lost to middlemen in the financial system, $2 are lost due to inefficiency, incompetence, and corruption in government. As with all things in life, it all comes down to creating systems which align incentives in such a way that the things that people want and need are made readily available to everyone in society. It sounds like a fantasy, but cryptocurrency could someday make it a reality. Now, the fact of the matter is that we're a long way away from fully functional decentralized autonomous organizations that do anything besides DeFi. As the saying goes, the system exists to protect itself, and we're only just starting to see what happens when cryptocurrency starts stepping on the toes of fiat fat cats. Imagine how aggressive the crackdown will be once cryptocurrency starts threatening the government's monopoly on violence. It boggles my mind that not a single government has implemented a voting system on a transparent blockchain, even though the technology is well within their reach. Something as simple as that would inspire an incredible amount of trust from an increasingly distrustful citizenry, and likely remedy many of the social and political conflicts we're seeing today. Whether it's malice or incompetence, the solution is a decentralized, trustless system. Centralized power structures have been tried for thousands of years, and every single one of them has eventually collapsed under its own weight. With all the competition between different decentralized governance structures, maybe, just maybe, one of them will be robust enough to usher in a completely new era for mankind. If this video gave you hope, be sure to smash that like button until it's broke. Remember to subscribe to the channel too and ping that notification bell so you get a heads up when the next video hits the tube. If you're looking for more content from the Coin Bureau, you can check out my new Coin Bureau Clips channel for some behind-the-scenes action. You can also follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. My Telegram channel is where you can get your fill of daily crypto updates, and my weekly newsletter will help give your portfolio a much-needed upgrade. If you're in the mood to give back, head on over to the Coin Bureau merch store and add a hoodie or tee to your clothing rack. You can find the links to my merch store as well as all the resources I just mentioned in the video description. That's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I can't wait to see you all again. Take care and keep hodling that crypto.